So chapter 7 is one of the chapters that has a single narrative with explanatory sections bookending the beginning and end of that single narrative. So let's look at what chapter 7 has to offer. So let's begin in verse 4. It says the following: "Say unto wisdom, you are my sister, and call understanding your kinswoman, that," understanding and wisdom, "that they may keep you from the strange woman, from the stranger which flatters with her words." Remember, wisdom, one of the primary things it does is it will necessarily affect who you have as friends and who you are in a relationship with. Verse 6, "For at the window of my house I looked through my casement, and I beheld one of the simple ones, and discerned among the youths a man that was void of understanding, passing through the street near her corner, and he went the way to her house." Number 1, he was on the way to her house. Number 2, verse 9, "In the twilight, in the evening, in the black and dark night. And behold," number 3, "there met him a woman with the attire of a harlot and subtle of heart." So it continues on and details all of said flattery that she uses, and he gives in. And so what is one way that the character in this parable was pondering the path of his feet? What were the fatal errors that he made that led him to this wrong decision? Now, we could go many ways with this, but I'm going to try to keep it simple. The most obvious face value errors that he made was explained right in the text. The 3 things that I numbered to you. He was in the wrong place. He was on the way to her house. Number 2, it was the wrong time. He's out in the evening, and that's normally not the time to be doing things like that, at least in most narratives. And number 3, he was doing the wrong thing. He was meeting up with the wrong people. So as believers, we tend to worry, and to some degree it is rightly so. We need to be concerned about the fact if we are operating in the Lord's timing, if we are in the right place or not, if we are doing the thing that God would have us to be doing. And that's good, but many times the enemy will use that, and we can almost get to the point of being paranoid of, am I missing God's timing? And that is not the Lord's will for us. So how do we know if we are operating within the Lord's timing? Well, the simple answer is just being obedient to whatever the last instruction was. Whatever it is that God has already told you to do that you know. And that's exactly what wisdom is. Just follow what you do know, and then he will give more. Same as with the parable of the talents, with the stewards. They made good use of the talents that their Lord had given them, and then they were given more at the proper time. Jonah found out what obedience was. It was doing what he was supposed to be doing, where he was supposed to be doing it, when he was told to do it. So those are the basic guideposts. Obviously very broad brush here. Those are the basic guideposts that can help keep you on the right path, walking during the day, because it says to walk while it is day, and doing the right thing with the right people of like precious faith. So obedience to the basics that you already know will help keep your life on track with his will. Now, obedience might be simple, but it may not be easy. Now, there's a big difference between it may not be easy, but it can be simple. You could talk about that all day. We won't. But just briefly, ask Daniel. It was a simple concept to just keep praying. keep praying in spite of what the political ruling that had been made at that time. But it wasn't an easy situation. That doesn't mean that everything is always going to be peachy if you are in line with God's timing. I just said on track. Esther, for such a time as this, right? Joseph in the right place at the right time and saved untold numbers of people, not just of his own group of people, the children of Israel, but also of the Egyptians and of countless people from other countries and nationalities around Egypt. He said that I hear that there's corn in Egypt. He was at the right place at the right time doing the right thing in prison. Right? Maybe not easy, but simple. So the timing and placement and action of these people's lives, Daniel and Esther and Joseph, it was absolutely divine timing. But, even in the dungeon, they were just following the light that they had. There's no indication that Joseph knew exactly how his story was going to turn out. He just did the right thing wherever he happened to be. So I have a plaque that says, God may not always give the light for the whole journey, but he will always give the light for the very next step. I quoted it poorly, but that's what it means. So let's return to our chapter 7 of Proverbs. Jumping ahead to the end of this single narrative, to the end of the parable, in Proverbs, we find the not so obvious fatal error that this character made, but quite honestly was probably the most fatal of the errors that he made. Verse 21. With her much fair speech she caused him to yield. With the flattery of her lips she forced him. He goes after her straightway as an ox to the slaughter, or as a fool to the correction of the stocks, until a dart strikes through him, and as a bird hastes to the snare, he doesn't know that it's for his life. Hearken unto me now, O you children, attend to the words of my mouth. Let not your heart. Let's read that again. Let not your heart decline to her ways, and go not astray in her paths. Notice what was first. Let not your heart. And then it was, don't go astray. Let not your heart. There's a little indication of choice there. Remember in the Gospels where the religious leaders were asking Yeshua about adultery. And he was like, guys, I'm telling you, if you even think in your heart with lust, you've committed adultery. And that put him back a little bit. That goes along with Proverbs 23:7, where it says, as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. So this character in this narrative in chapter 7 of Proverbs, his heart was inclined to her ways. That's why he was going the way to her house. His heart was already there. The heart goes, then action follows. That's why he was on the way to her house at night, meeting up with her. Now there is a biblical principle to receiving instruction through the example of the lives of others, through parables, through whatever means. That is a biblical principle. And I like that principle because I personally don't like the idea of falling into every sinful ditch known to mankind and having to learn for myself there's a ditch there to fall in, right? I don't want to learn firsthand the hard and cruel way that drugs could destroy your life, immorality could destroy your life. There's an innumerable number of things, number of ditches out there that you could fall in. I don't want to fall into all of them. personally. I would like to watch other people's lives and watch them put up signs around the ditch and, read the sign. There's a ditch there. Don't fall in it. However, there's a philosophy that's being loudly propagated, especially in entertainment. You see it a lot more. And it says, follow your heart. It will show you the way. Now, there are times when just individuals will use that saying, follow your heart, and they're just using weak English just as a way to encourage people to follow the aspirations that God has given them, to pursue the dreams and the talents that God has given to them, to pursue that, right? However, most script writers, I would say, know exactly what they're saying. So, especially if you look at the context of the stories that they are writing. So, what does the Bible say about following your heart? Which is what this young man in Proverbs Chapter 7 was doing. His heart led, and then he followed it. It didn't turn out so well. So, what does it say? Proverbs 23:19 says this, hear thou, my son, be wise, guide your heart in the way. That's completely the opposite. That's like cart before the horse. That's totally the opposite. Guide your heart. That's like taking something by the reins and saying, no, we are going this way instead. And Jeremiah 17:9 says, the heart is deceitful above all things, desperately wicked. Who can know it? Right? It says that we are supposed to set our affection on things above. You put it there by choice. I am choosing to put my affection on things that have eternal value and not of the fleeting pleasures of sin. It says we are to seek first the kingdom of God, and then other things will be added to us. So we have two diametrically opposed positions here. Secular philosophy of follow your heart, and then the biblical philosophy of guide your heart in the way. So which do you think is truth and which do you think is error? So pursue your dreams. Yes, pursue what God has told you to do. Be a good steward of all of the talents that the Lord has given you. Yes, do that. Follow your heart? No. No, 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 no. It says, lean not to your own understanding. Jeremiah 10:33 says the following, O Lord, I know that the way of man is not in himself. It is not in a man that walks to direct his steps. Man's goings are of the Lord. In Proverbs 20:24 it says, how can a man understand his own way? One of the psalmists of Israel wrote in Psalm 130, it said, search me, O God, and know my heart. It already said, who can know it? But God knows it. And you have to pray, as it says here, for God to reveal what is to you, what's even in your own heart. Know my heart, try me and know my thoughts, and see if there be any wicked way in me. Lead me, guide me. You're given the reins directly to God. Guide me in the way everlasting. It says, may the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in your sight. Create a pure heart in me and renew a right spirit within me. Psalm 90:12 says to teach us to number our days so that we may apply indicates somewhat of a choice, apply wisdom. So movies are not reality. There's no mystical, youthful glory in making common, unavoidable errors. The book of Proverbs is filled with the following command in one form or the other, and quite honestly the entire Bible as well. But it says, my son, listen. Listen to my instruction. It is It is deliverance from destruction. The entire Bible says this, but Proverbs alone says it so often and so loudly that your ears would ring with it if you would just let it. If you would just let it. So Lord, help us to let it ring in our ears. Help us to listen, to hear and obey, to shema your instruction that is deliverance from your instruction that is deliverance from destruction. Until next time, guys. Bye-bye.